It's great to have Steve Kilbey back with us here at noise11.com. Another album. I've lost count of the number of albums, Steve. I know it's way past 50 for you. 4 in the last 12 months and then another one this year. So, do you keep count?
It's really hard to keep count because the church have done things like made acoustic albums and we've made albums that only came out on our own label and sort of live albums and sort of, it's really hard, but it's probably up around, I'm on about 70 albums. Probably if you call an album something you could find on, say, Spotify or iTunes, there's probably, I'm on about 70 records or albums altogether. And I've written, written songs that you could find on a sort of, pub that have actually been published and are out there. I've probably written over 1,000 songs. So, but I'm 66, so it's not that extraordinary, it's only an album a year, really, isn't it?
Well, with the new record, the Hall of Counterfeits,
yeah.
You can listen to it from a musical perspective, but for people who choose to go deeper into the lyrics, this is a very personal album, isn't it? I mean, when I think back to the early church albums and the songs and the hits that people know, they were about relationships, they were about people. This is really philosophical.
Yeah, it is. It is philosophical. And once again, that first hit was 40 years ago. And I'm sort of writing to have a hit. And nowadays, as I said, the pressure's off. I can afford to be philosophical. And all that teenage angst has left me. And now I'm kind of, my records are more about sort of meditations on, time and mortality and past lives. Past lives have always been kind of almost with you even, which was, quite a hit in 1982, was sort of about past lives. There's a lot of past lives in there. Yeah, hopefully after 40 years, I've kind of moved on. I'm not just plowing that same old furrow I used to plow.
In 2020, you were dabbling in this topic with the album Songs from Another Life. And on this album, you're singing about "I've been here before," so it's a
yes.
Consistent message.
Well, you've really done your homework, Paul. I'm very impressed. It's funny, doing these interviews. Sometimes guys go, "Tell me about the album," and you go, "Which bit do you like?" "Oh, all of it. Just tell me about it." But if they can't actually name one song and you've actually listened to the lyrics of it, well, I'm really impressed. I've been here before. It's a sort of it's an obvious. I think that, okay, just to get really philosophical on you, and keep it really brief. My view, I've started to believe over the years, all the things I've seen, having 5 children of my own, having watched friends and parents die, and just thinking about it, it seems to me that we reincarnate on this earth and on other planes, in other places, some better, some worse. We reincarnate over and over and over again, learning the lesson. So you turn up your first life and you're a bastard, and then you die and nothing happens. Second time you're a bastard, and a few people might go, "You're a real bastard," and you go, "Oh yeah." And then maybe by the 10,000th life, you're in the very act of being a bastard, when a little voice says, "Hey, this hasn't really worked out for us in the past, has it?" You go, "Ah." And then you start getting this feeling, and then you gradually improve, and you gradually improve because you've learned all your lessons. But everybody has to be a bastard. Everybody has to be a king. Everybody has to be a slave. Everybody has to be a man. Everybody has to be a woman. Everybody has to be a dog. This is my view. Everybody has to be something. You have to be all of the things, and you have to take on every role. And then when you've done all of that, you can graduate from this round of reincarnations and maybe move on to the next level, whatever the hell that is, until eventually you're reunited with the source, with the universe, with God. And that's what all my songs are about. And that's like a guy saying, how many times have I got to keep doing this? Because it's a reproachful song, I've been here before, looks like I've got to come back for more. And if you keep making the same mistakes, I think you have to come back and do it again until one day, because it isn't so obvious that you can remember your past lives, but you just get impressions of them. And every now and then, some unknown sort of voice in you sort of says, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that anymore. I believe that's your eternal soul that witnesses all this stuff. But I think it would drive people mad to remember their past lives. And there wouldn't be any point if you knew, it sort of has to be this gradual thing. So you gradually learn and get through this obstacle course. That's what I think anyway.
So does religion and science equal the same thing? Religion calls it body and soul. Science calls it matter and light. E equals MC squared is exactly the same as body and soul when you think about it then.
It is. And 10,000 years ago, on the banks of the Ganges, the rishis, these kind of guru type guys, intuited that everything was vibration. And they've been saying ever since, nothing is solid, it's all vibration. But the West didn't believe that until we have one of our own, a scientist goes, all is vibration. And then we go, it's all vibration because Albert Einstein said so. But other people, other races, other times and other places have believed this all along. And here in the West, we're kind of very good at some things and we're very slow on other things. But yeah, E equals MC squared. There you go.
That sort of explains eternal time, doesn't it? Because if time doesn't exist, as we know, time doesn't exist in light. At the speed of light, there is no time. So if the M and the C squared separate, i.e. death, and what religion calls the soul and what Einstein calls the light continues, it continues at an eternal amount of time until you choose to come back in and change the dimension of time back into what we have here, a linear experience.
Well said. Wow, I'm very impressed that you understand E equals MC squared at all, and you've now converted into philosophical terms I can understand. I never realized all that.
Let's get back to the album, The Winged Heels.
Yeah.
The band, The Winged Heels. Is that a unit, or is that just the consortium of guys who came together to make this record?
It's a unit that has now coalesced into a unit. I did that Songs from Another Life with Gareth Koch. And when I went back up, I discovered this studio I really like up in Gosford, where I like the studio, I like the atmosphere, I like the guy that works there. And Gareth Koch was living up there, and he dropped in on 11 Women, and then Roger Mason dropped in on 11 Women, and we did some more recording. I wrote some more songs, and suddenly it all coalesced as The Winged Heels, a unit with a kind of a musical manifesto. And of course, Barton Price playing the drums, who sometimes might be playing with us live and sometimes not, but it'll always be me and Roger and Gareth. So we've sort of coalesced into the musical unit, but we also have a kind of, we have a manifesto and a philosophy about the sort of music we're trying to make, or at least I do. And they go along with me without arguing, of sort of trying to make this, well, for a start, both of them are very, very, very accomplished musicians, like Gareth, who's had a career playing with, studying, got a PhD in classical flamenco guitar and studied in Vienna. There's a name to throw around. He studied in Vienna. And Roger, who's been doing played for every band there is in Australia and some overseas, but it's also been in soundtracks. Roger Mason, who can play all of these instruments. Not only can he play them, he's got them. He's got all these wild, exotic instruments. So I have these two wonderful players at my fingertips. I'm not such a wonderful player. I'm always been more of a sort of conceptualizer. So I have these great players, and I try and give them new contexts in which to do all the things that they can do that I don't think that they might have necessarily thought of on their own, because I try to sort of fuck it up. I don't want things to resolve and just be pretty, and I want to have mistakes and improvisation and random. I want the music to be sort of random and organic, like a conversation would be, you know. So I have these wonderful players. I've named them the Winged Heels, and here on this record, it all falls together. And me at the helm, doing whatever I like, because there's no record company involved. I can make a crazy record like this. It's sort of 23 tracks, and it's just all over the place, and does whatever I want, because nobody's there to say you can't do that anymore.
This is a distinctively Eastern sound that you've captured on this new record. Totally.
Look, okay, going back to the past lives thing, I've always felt like when I was growing up, I always felt like I was in the wrong time, and I've always had incredible affinity for the Greeks and the Romans, the Babylonians. And when I'd go and see those biblical epics like Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments, I was really taking in all I love Hollywood's, I love things that are sort of slightly fucked up versions of something else. So I like the fact that Hollywood doesn't really have any idea what sort of music the Egyptians and the Romans and the Greeks had. Nobody really does. I mean, we know they had lyres, and some of them might have had trumpets and things, but we don't really know. So Hollywood imagined for us, you know, when Pharaoh would appear, there'd be ba 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 ba, or when Moses is being seduced by his handmaid, and there's this sort of gentle plucking lyre, or whatever instruments they had, but nobody really knows what that is. So they had a stab at it, and then I processed that stab, what to me constituted biblical kind of music or ancient music. And finally, when I met Gareth Koch, I said, let's have a stab at my idea of what ancient music is. So when Roger joined and brought so we have really old, authentic instruments from right across the board. We have a hurdy-gurdy, which is a Celtic instrument. If you see the one they wind, and then you play it with one hand and you wind it the other, and these weird strips of cloth move across this thing. That's the sort of, it often sounds like a guitar feeding back, sort of, it's like a drony thing, but it can be played. He's got dulcimers. He's got hammered dulcimer, lap dulcimer. He plays the cello. He's got all these weird, he's got a Turkish instrument called a kumbus, which has got a neck on it about sort of 9 foot long, literally. It's like a banjo with a tiny little body and then this great big long neck. So he's got all these weird, strange and esoteric instruments, and he knows how to play them. And so as soon as if someone would turn up at the studio and go, hey, I've got a clarinet, I go, right, I want clarinet on my record. Always looking for sort of, and so this guy has all this incredible collection of instruments, and he can play them, and he's willing to take direction from someone like me who's a bit of a layman, going, does it have to be like, and he go, try this then. So it's really going in an Eastern / ancient / biblical sort of direction for me.
Well, there's two sides to this record, isn't it? There's the lyrics that come from inside your head. Horizon meets the ground, swinging on the moon. But we also have a geographical location in Angelsea.
I'm just mixing it all up. So I've got a song that starts with ominously with a cello and a sort of a slide guitar commenting in these sort of Eastern scales. And then suddenly it all goes away, and we've got a very typical little rocker on da 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 da. And we find out that the singer all he wants to do is drive down to Angelsea, where everything is cool and groovy. I love just mixing it all up. Things that shouldn't really go together. And then no rules and regulations. And it's also lighthearted. It's ironic. It's not like, oh, here's my songs from the past life. It's like I don't fucking know. I'm a crazy old geezer. Take too many drugs. I have these wonderful musicians at my fingertips. I'm just going to fucking do anything. And hopefully some people it's entertainment. Some people might like the tunes. Some people might dig deeper and go, wow, there's some sort of philosophical stuff going in here. Most people go, oh, I don't want to hear that. I'm just going to listen to the Blurred Crusade for the rest of my life. So I'm just having a lot of fun with it, you know, but fun doesn't have to mean stupid. Fun, musicians can have fun without being, baby, we're gonna rock. You know, that isn't fun to me. That's excruciating, ball-numbing stupidity. You know, when most people look at rock and roll and say these things to me are fun, to me they're not fun. To me, fun is sort of like something that has a bit of intellectual stimulation.
There are some links to the past coming up, and for those people who do want to listen to the Blurred Crusade for the rest of their life, you are doing a Blurred Crusade show of Skins and Heart, Seance and Heyday in coming months.
I am. I think, well, it's very good for business. Okay, I've got to say that it's very good for business, but also me who wrote 90% of all that stuff on my own. It's good. I find it a really fun show to play all the songs and learn how to play them on acoustic guitar so they're okay. Because I am a bass guitarist, and bass guitar and playing a 12-string acoustic, they're really different things. And I've struggled all my life with trying to be an okay guitarist. On my very best night, I'm an okay guitarist. So it's a bit of a challenge for me to do it, remember all the words, but as well to give people perspective on the life and times of those albums. In 1980, going into a studio with no success, nobody knew who I was, and making Skins and Heart the way I want it was a struggle. And then the next year we had the biggest fucking producer in the world, Bob Clearmountain. He was one of the first guys to be a huge producer and mixer. People weren't talking about mixing much before he came along. You wonder, you know, you get this record or that record, like who mixed Exile on Main Street? I don't know. Was it Jimmy Miller? I don't know if they didn't even get, and then suddenly in the very early 1980s, guys came to prominence, and their thing was they mixed. I mean, Bob did engineer and produce our album. He produced it with us. He engineered it, but he didn't always. Sometimes he was a guy that you just sent your record to right at the end, and he put his magic fucking sound on it that sold millions of records. So I like to talk about that. I like to talk about him. And then Seance, there was no Bob Clearmountain. We did it all on our own. And I suddenly had too much clout and influence, and everything was, I made this record and then it got off because they got Nick Launay, who was a 19-year-old English guy who'd had some success with Midnight Oil and the Models. And suddenly Nick Launay was mixing our record, and it all went awry. I like to sort of, it's a sort of it's not me just sitting there going, and then the next one and the next one. I sort of talk about it and sort of in a conversational way. I engage the audience in how it's all going to go down. And, you know, what they sort of want to hear about. So it's a sort of it's a big package, just me, but it's a broad view of those albums and the times they were made in, and the cast of lunatics that were involved.
Well, Steve, it's good to see somebody being so active at the moment when a lot of people are just locked away, but there's been a lot of new music and a lot of shows planned, so thank you for the music over the last 40 years. And
thank you, Paul.
In the future.